Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Soccer Coaching Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott.
And I'm your other host, Mark.
In each episode, Mark and I will discuss the key topics that impact on football coaching in the foundation and youth development phases. We will share our thoughts, ideas and experiences, and whenever possible include guests so we can get their insights and opinions too. Thanks for listening and we hope you enjoy this episode. So Mark, how are we doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Good stuff.
Very good.
Back for another episode.
Yes.
All right, this one is in the can, as we say.
Yeah. You're on your own again.
Again, yeah. We'll discuss that off fair.
One man show.
To be fair, it'd be even longer if we were both there. So it's probably better that it's just one of us that goes to these things. So today's episode is going to be we're going to play a conversation that I had a little way back now with Paul Barry from Arsenal, who looks after the under 10 year group. I observed a session maybe 2 months back now. And then after that, I went to meet Paul and have a discussion around the session itself because it was amazing, the session. It was really, really good. Yeah, we're fortunate we've seen a few, haven't we? Different academies at different times, and not comparing because that wouldn't be right. But certainly Paul's approach is probably a bit different, and you can really see the benefits that it brings to the players, and sharing some of that stuff with our listeners, and hopefully then talking about maybe ways in which we could put that back into practice in our environments might be useful. Does that sound all right?
Yeah.
Because it's so long, I think we'll just stop now, play it, and then chat afterwards.
Perfect.
Sound good. All right. Enjoy. Hello, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm good, Scott. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. Firstly, I'll just say on the podcast officially, thank you so much for letting me come around and crash your space.
You're more than welcome.
And meet the dog and get a cup of tea. I only do it for the tea and to meet the family.
It's a nice time of year to do it. Sunny conservatory, warm weather.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's all good.
Today, really, we're going to chat about, if it's okay, I got to see one of your sessions a couple of months back now, and I was blown away by it, and we'll get into more details about that. Off the back of it, I was really keen to share verbally what I saw visually with the audience because I know they'll get lots out of that. So I've hassled you to kind of say, look, can we have some time to kind of look through that? But before we get into that, Paul, I wondered if you'd be happy to just talk through kind of your coaching journey to this point. And if you don't mind towards the end of that, just your philosophy, what your approach is to coaching maybe, or how you feel about things, just to give the listeners an indication of your background and kind of where you are.
I'll try and keep this brief.
As long as you want, honestly.
But I like to think I've had a vast range of different experiences. Moving right back to when I did my first qualification at the fresh-faced age of 17, did what is now called traditionally the Level 2. That was the FA Coaching Certificate. That led to what was a fantastic introduction to working with young people, which was working in a voluntary capacity as a grassroots coach for Writtle Miners Football Club, which is a football club based near Chelmsford. Okay. Was there for 4 years, learnt lots about not just the game, but more so how to manage groups of young people ranging from 5 years old up to 11 and 12. So around the mini soccer sort of age range. Basic sessions, because it was something that was a new thing for me during the week of an evening and Saturday mornings. I had a limited understanding of the game. A lot of that for me, my learning journey there was role modelling the existing coaches they had, which you've got to imagine this is looking at 98, 99 into sort of 2000. Really for me, the sessions that I delivered were based upon what I observed them delivering, right, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit compared to perhaps how I now coach. And there's a real change across those 15, 20 years. And I still think about it. It's an interesting journey. From that, I spent some time in America, working around Michigan and Ohio. I was there for 3 or 4 months in 2001, the summer of 2001, once I'd graduated from university, did a sports science degree. That was really interesting. That was a really, for me, positive experience to understand and appreciate the difference in culture and what football meant to people in a different country. I'd been to America on a holiday as a kid, but never really understood what their perception of football was, or obviously soccer as they call it. That was a really useful experience, working through different camps for 12 weeks, staying with host families, working with children from, again, age 5 up to 12, 13, 14, working or coaching girls teams. Real vast and different types of experiences. From there, went through some different sort of coaching community-based jobs. My next qualification was something called the FA Fitness Trainers Award, which I did in 2004, which is a qualification that doesn't actually exist anymore, which is a shame. Because as I reflect upon that part of my CPD as I grew up, that's one of my favourite courses. Right. I had a a very heavy sports science and fitness background. I've worked as a personal trainer, worked in gyms. So for me to work in a capacity and to learn the inner workings of what a sports scientist has to do in a football club was really valuable for me. That was gym-based, that was field-based, all the different types of fitness components, how you test for fitness, how you produce a periodization and a macro cycle across a 12-month season, working with elite players and young players as well. So that was a real big tick in the box for me, and that's given me a grounding to when work with currently our strength and conditioning experts at the football club. That led into a short role as the sports scientist for the England futsal team, which I did a couple of trips abroad with them, did some stuff in this country as well. That introduced me to futsal, which I'm sure we'll get onto at some stage. It's something that I put a lot of value on, and that was a real interesting start to working in a different sort of format of the game.
What year was that?
That was roughly 2005.
Okay.
So that was when futsal was pretty much just getting introduced into this country. Yeah. We went to Belgium, played against the Belgium national team, had to line up, sing the national anthem, etc. It was a fantastic experience. That then followed on to, again, working in different community-based schemes. I worked as part of a Brazilian soccer schools franchise with a colleague in Chelmsford, not far from where I'm based. My first proper full-time role was working for the Football Association as an FA skills coach. That was in 2007 when the programme was first introduced. That involved a lot of school-based coaching, working closely with teachers, helping them with their PPA time, giving them a little rest from working with their kids, helping them with PE planning and PE curriculums. That had different strands to it. For example, after school clubs, evening sessions, they called them FA skills centres. So that's trying to forge links with local grassroots charter standard clubs. So I got to know a lot of local clubs in and around Essex, working with my 4 or 5 colleagues that we had a small group that worked around the whole county. My first experience of coach education was around that time. I did my coach education qualification to go and tutor the beginner's guide to futsal. So that then linked into my previous role that I was doing with the futsal team, the national futsal team. That was all interesting part of working with the FA. The CPD program was one of the best I've ever been through, perhaps the best. Went through all the FA Youth Award modules, the pilot scheme for the module 3 before it got rolled out to everyone else in the country. I think I was the first FA skills coach to achieve that qualification, so something I'm still really proud of. Was there for 3 years, loved every minute of it, but it got to a stage, Scott, when I was thinking, I'm enjoying this, I'm working with lots of different children, all different ages, great for behavioural management, for instance, which I'm, again, something that we might talk about in this episode, but I wanted to start testing myself in a more elitist environment, start working with more intentional players that had aspirations to play the game professionally. In 2010, when I left the FA, Dagenham and Redbridge had just been promoted, I believe, into the Football League, and they set up a new centre of excellence. It's not far from me, I'm quite local to that area. So I was installed as their technical skills coach, and I did some fitness work as well with them. That was ranging from ages under 10s to under 18s. So I'd go and do some work during the week with the youth team. Brilliant experience. A lot of my delivery was quite curve based, which again is a bit of a difference to perhaps how I deliver sessions now, even though there is still a place for that, I think. And again, something that we may discuss. Great experience that led on to my next opportunity, which was with Southend United, where I was a coach for 5 years, starting off as a part-time age group coach, and in 2015 went in as a full-time lead foundation phase coach, which was, again, another invaluable experience to lead me to where I am now, working with pre-academy age groups up to under 11s, and my first, obviously, real taste of what it takes to work full-time at a club, and there's loads of stuff other than just what you see on the pitch that goes towards working in a full-time environment, and really interesting. Yeah, and then 2 years ago, I'm now into my 3rd year working at Arsenal. It's the pinnacle of what I'd always strive to build towards. It's taken me nearly 20 years to get there. I've had multiple rejections, loads and loads of disappointments. But for me, that's allowed me to get to the point that I'm at now. And I feel that I've had to work pretty hard for it. So that's why I try and enjoy every minute of it.
There's so many correlations between player's journey and a coach's journey. You know, you talk about 20 years of learning your craft, struggling, getting rejections, have to challenge back. I mean, that's no different to a player, is it, really? And they start off when they're under fives and they got to get there, through that journey. It's so similar. I think as coaches, we can forget that actually it's what we ask of our players is the same as what needs to be as a coach as well. Obviously, there's a million and one things in there that we'll come back to, I'm sure. But I'm just encouraged to know then, before we look back at kind of how you might have thought about things when you first started compared to how you do now, what would you say your philosophy is now? And I do recognise that's can be a bit of a loaded question.
A very broad question.
Yeah, but even philosophy so much, unless you've got a philosophy, but just maybe your approach to coaching and kind of your general views on it.
I think football ultimately is the biggest sport in the world. I'm pretty sure it's the most participated in sport in the world. You've got to make it as fun as possible at any age group, at any format of whatever that player is involved in, be that recreational, be that semi-professional as they get older perhaps, or at academy level that I'm currently involved in. So first and foremost, it has to be fun, it has to be engaging. The children have to spend a lot of time with the ball. They have to work on different aspects of their game. But above all else, a lot of it depends upon how engaged you are as a young player, what the session looks like as far as how inclusive it is for all of the boys so that they're being positively stressed while still enjoying it. I think a major part of young people involved in football is, can the coach differentiate within the session? So can he pitch different learning objectives at the right scale, at the right time for the right players? I've looked at some work from Dan Abrahams recently, who does another podcast which I enjoy. He talks about different dials. He talks about the stretch dial and the support dial. And I really like that. And that's something that I use myself when I think about what my philosophy of football is. I think, can you stretch players at the right time by the right amount? If you're stretching them, does that mean that the support has to go up in correlation with the stretch? Perhaps not. It might be in certain instances just stretching the player, but your support is then slightly reduced to see how that player copes at any one time. And maybe you saw a little bit of that when you observed the session a few weeks ago.
I did, yeah.
So I think children have to be stretched as much as is relevant to them at that time. And I think the coach has to be skilled enough to know what level of support is required at any one time as well. We say at Arsenal, high challenge, high support, which is great. I think there are also times when it's high challenge and the support might not be right then and there. It might be sometime after, be that after the session or towards the weekend, and you can refer to moments within the session itself. But kids love being stretched. Kids love being challenged, and that's part of it.
I think this is where coaching is very much a craft, isn't it? And it is having that experience, craft, and that's your 20 years of going through the different variations of places where you've worked and different environments. That maybe helps you hone that particular craft to be able to look at a group of players and think, I can dip in and out almost and dial up on one, dial down on the other, and adjust things. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
and I think also what I appreciate with young people as well is that they're very social little human beings. The support might not always be from me. It could be, I quite like the idea of reciprocal coaching, which is when you work in pairs, for instance, with the boys. And that might be that one particular player is helping the other. And he might be the one that's stretching that player by his own play, or by him setting objectives or challenges for his teammate. And then the support might come from him and vice versa. To see that go on is incredible. Yeah. It's not something that I think you can do straight away. I'm pretty sure it isn't something you can do straight away, but it's something you can build to. And once you get to know the young players and you've connected with them, and you can see who needs that sort of challenge as well, and for their social skills. And if you want to tick boxes in the social corner, it's phenomenal to see kids work and interact with each other like that.
So you spoke a lot in the philosophy kind of about, it felt very individual, like player focused rather than team focused. Would that be fair to say, or
Yeah, I think football's a team game, and even last night I was saying to the boys that they're in a really exciting team environment as individuals. So if I was a betting man, I'd put some money on the current age group of whatever it is in whatever club being very unlikely to be that first team in 8, 10, 12 years time. I think you've got to try and work with as many individuals as you can, whilst not neglecting their role within the team framework. We did a lot of work last night, for instance, which we might discuss on how to be a good teammate and what that looks like, what that feels like for the person being the good teammate, what that feels like for the others within the group. Yeah, I think as an academy coach, you can't neglect the team. football's a team game, it's a team environment, but you've got 20 different individuals, and they all require different things, and they've all got different needs at different times.
Great background, great indication of your philosophy and where you sit, kind of your overview with coaching more generally. Are you happy to talk about your current role at Arsenal and what you do now and who you work with?
Yes, I'm the current under-10s head coach. So previously, this is the start of my third season. I'm fully involved in what is the foundation phase. So that's pre-academy up to under 11s. So I work really closely with the pre-academy team and the pre-academy recruitment staff. Work very closely with our new under 9s full-time head coach and our under 11s head coach who looks after the phase in its entirety, so 11s downwards. So we sit very closely in the office at Hale End. We talk football all day. We talk about the kids all day, parents all day. The whole holistic program at Arsenal, working with those age groups from 7s or 6s really up to under 11s. It helps me now, having been there for some time, that I now know a lot more about the players that are in the under 12s, under 13s age groups, because I've worked with them in the last sort of two and a half years. Fantastic role. People often ask that maybe a part-time staff, what do you do as a full-time coach? They think that they just see you come out at 6 o'clock, do an hour and a half session, you go home. It's amazing what you have to do when you're full-time in football. And some of the things that the grounding I got at Southend was invaluable for me to move to where I am now. One of the biggest clubs in the world is an interesting comparison. But I like that sort of journey. Having gone from, it's like that rags to riches journey a little bit. That's why I'm fascinated by players like Jamie Vardy, for instance, who the journey they've taken from non-league up to playing in the World Cup for England. I put a lot of value on that, and the lessons you can learn yourself going through. I mean, at Southend, I had to go and wash the kit myself at times, go and get ref money from the ground, go and put all the kit together for the kids at the weekend. At Arsenal, you've got numerous full-time staff that do all those things for you. That took a lot of time to get used to it. And I'd go in there and I'd perhaps do more than I was actually required to do. You learn pretty quickly because you start having questions asked from the other full-time guys. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing
Showing
this?
us up, stop doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Putting us out of a job.
But I guess five ends at Southend, it's different resources, right? Different environment completely.
Absolutely.
But what a great place to cut your teeth. And then
it was a brilliant experience. I was there for 3 years part-time. I'd just gone into my third year full-time before I had the opportunity to move to Arsenal. I wouldn't change it for the world.
How does it work with regards to the approaching for the sessions themselves? Would you prepare your own session, or are you given a session to deliver?
So we have a periodisation. We have a new head of coaching that's been with us for a year, near enough now into what is his second season. So we have themes to work towards. We have team tasks, counter tasks, some of the terminology. I'm sure it's consistent with other clubs. We have flexibility to create the sessions. We have a guideline. We have coaching principles and playing principles that have to be evident within the sessions themselves. How you go about getting those, again, the creativity of the coach is they're allowed to create. So that's great.
Yep.
You've got different types of activities. That might be ball coordination. That might be positional games, which we might term as phases of play. Tactical games, which might be more bigger game formats. Different types of activities to try and bring about those topics and those tasks. So we have a guideline and we have a macro cycle to work to, but the guys at Arsenal are great in letting you have that flexibility to try and bring that out in the kids and the teams in
the way that you think
in
best.
Different ways.
Yeah, very good. And how often do you have the under 10s over a week?
So 3 sessions a week. We have them on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night. And then we have their games program fixtures on a Sunday.
Okay.
That can differ through the season. For example, we have things during half-term weeks called regen weeks or regeneration weeks, when we can deload the kids slightly, give the staff a little bit of breathing space away from the 100-mile-an-hour lifestyles, what it can be at times. We might get the kids in during the day, for instance. We might have a festival in the day or go to a tournament or a tour. But we try and, across the season, load them up as much as we can, but give them that breathing space and that break every so often when they need it as well. And that's a really important. That's when they re-energize and they grow physically and psychologically. They can come back to us after that, ready for 4 more contacts a week again.
Yeah. And those sessions that you have, the 3 sessions in the week, would they be similar, or do you have a different focus for each of those sessions? I know some people have like technical Tuesday or something else. Do you do something
for
similar?
For instance, so last night was what we call our execution night or a technical night. So training spaces are smaller. Activities are perhaps, they visibly look quicker because of the reduced time and space compared to Wednesday into Friday when the training areas get bigger. The sessions might look a bit more like the game that's going to be worked on the Sunday, for instance. Bigger spaces, more position specific, whilst not neglecting those technical aspects, but that might only form a smaller component of the session. A bit more tactical awareness, more strategy, linking in then to the Friday when it's very much just game based. Warm up, game based. They'll often be in the teams that they're going to be in for Sunday, so they can start to forge some habits and some connections with their teammates. Try and play them in the positions they're going to play in on Friday, link into Sunday, discuss the opposition. So as the week goes by, from Monday to Friday, you start to have more of a consideration towards what Sunday's going to look like.
Yeah, I see. And the players get a feel for that as well.
That's right.
Makes sense. Okay, now you may have answered this question a little bit, what you said at the start. What would you say was your approach to training this particular kind of age group, and what would be the key priorities for you?
So for me, it's using your time wisely.
Okay.
We have the boys for, I'd say, roughly 2 hours of an evening, from 5:30 till 7:30. So time management is key for me. So the activities that you've got, of which we have almost like a menu of activities, and we pick out the ones which are relevant to the kids at any one time. If I think about a Monday, which as I said a moment ago is our execution night, can the boys get as many touches as they can in different ways, in different spaces, with different levels of pressure as possible? At under 9s, it might look a little bit different. They're newer to the academy. If they've come through pre-academy, that might have been 2 sessions a week with a fairly consistent games program. They hit under 9s, they're in 4 times a week. So for me, that transition from pre-academy to 9s needs to look a bit smoother. Once they get that into under 10s, then you can start throwing things at them a little bit more readily. So as you saw, we can start tasking them in the change rooms a bit more with things that link in with psychological, social components. We can start to really delve into the detail of what is their individual development plan and what individual things they need to do. We can start to pressurize them a little bit more in a positive way. At under 10s, you may well divide the group up a bit more often regarding to in terms of where they sit within the group. For instance, we have certain times in the year when we need to select what are deemed to be our top 10 players, for instance, something that you might not do as much in the under 9 season, but it gives them a real understanding of what it will look like when they get to under 11s, when they'll do that more often. Under 12s, when they start to consider what 11v11 looks like, when they might be a bit more attuned into a certain position on the pitch. So under 10s, you've got to give them a little bit of an understanding of what that might look like as they get a little bit older, more strategy, more tactical components, without trying to confuse the life out of them because they're still very, very young. But it needs to look a bit different from the under 9 season.
And it's that progression, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And the skill of the coach at the age group that I work with is how much you throw at them at any one time, and reading the group as to when you give them these different types of challenges and tasks.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't mention back at the start of this when I talked about my experiences, but I actually worked in colleges as well as a tutor.
Okay.
So I think
you see some of this now.
And some of the teaching strategies and behaviours that were evident when I perhaps worked in the classroom. So I've taught BTEC, I've delivered MVQ, from leisure management to customer service to business studies to level 2 gym to level 3 personal trainer to level 4 leisure management, for instance. When you deliver some of those, some of the content can be quite dry, for want of a better word, maybe. So you have to try and frame it so it's as enjoyable as possible. When we have the kids in at the start of an evening, I think straight away, how can you engage them? What can you immerse them in? So we talk about thinking football. It's a phrase we use at Arsenal, thinking football all the time. This season we've had televisions installed in our changing rooms, for instance. So one of the things I think is of value is having games streamed on the TV screen as the kids walk in. I think the game you saw was an El Clasico match, for instance, or a Barcelona-Real Madrid match from, I can't think what year it was, 2005 or 6.
Because it linked to the theme you want.
Because it had a lot of value and consistencies and similarities with some of the things that we were going to be talking about in the session, which was the theme of counter-pressing, which for me is one of the most exciting topics that you can work on with young people. They love the ball. So when they haven't got it, they're going to do everything they can to go and get it back. So have them thinking football and be immersed in the world of football straight away is really important for me. And to have a game like that the second they walk into the changing room, along with all the different signage that we've got in the changing room that link in with different thoughts and psychological, social aspects, to have that, for me, is a really positive start to the evening. We had a flip chart task that was linked into the match they were watching, which was to make notes on examples of counter pressing from either team, what it looked like, where on the pitch it was, some of the different things that were required individually as a unit and as a team in different positions.
Well, I noticed that when the players came in, or what from what I saw, they went straight up and did it themselves.
Yeah.
Is that just the habit? They know that's part of the process.
Yeah, they had a really good grounding at under 9s. So some of this stuff they did do at under 9s. I do it perhaps more often than they did at under 9s, which I think is a good thing, because again, referring back to a previous moment in the episode just a few minutes ago, you can't throw too much at the under 9s.
Yeah.
The challenge of being at Arsenal is enough at times for them. But under 9s, this particular group would have those tasks every so often, and they really enjoy it. So it doesn't need any prompting from me to say, right, there's the pen, there's the flip chart, watch the match, make some notes, like if you want to, or even if you make it compulsory, for instance. Their natural instinct is to walk into the change room, see the game, see the flip chart, and they're away.
Something up.
Because they've just got fantastic habits, and they're a group that love the game, they love watching football, they love talking about it, writing, making notes, and it's really great for a coach to be able to refer to that, as we did prior to the session starting.
Yeah.
And it's all their thoughts rather than it coming from us, and that's even better, because then you can refer to the playing principles that they've written, which most of the time fall in line with the ones that you're going to preempt in the session yourself anyway.
Yeah, and they've owned that, haven't they? Then, so you lay the foundation under 9s, and you kind of, they know what to expect. But I saw them walk in, I saw them watch the bit of the TV, I saw them read the thing on the board, and I saw them write answers to that. Good answers as well, not just making things up or guessing. But they gave it some. When I say good answers, they were giving it their thinking time. They were, they're writing what they generally thought. And it was, for me, again, it was the fact that I hadn't seen any coach speak to them at all. So they were just doing it, which was
their process.
What a cracking start to a session.
Completely.
Yeah. Okay.
What followed that, as you saw, was a changing room presentation, which was a little bit more coach-led. I don't think coaches can shy away from that. I think it still has a place for to be there, presenting some information, and for the boys to be looking and listening. What's important is that if within a 10 to 15 minute presentation such as it was, there's as much interaction with the kids as possible. We want them to be deep thinkers. Yep. We want the coaches to think like the players. We want the players to think like the coaches.
Yep.
And then you can start to build brilliant relationships and rapport with your kids. And you've got to trust them, because as you've seen, they know a lot more than perhaps you often give them credit for. And you've got to trust them and give them the chance to vocalise their opinions and their knowledge of the game.
And they're a vocal bunch.
They are a vocal bunch. They're typical little
really
9 and 10-year-olds, and that's really
Yeah.
important as well.
Okay, so just before we move on from the presentation in the change room, then had the players come and played any football before they came to the change room? Had they been outside on the pitch first, kicking around?
So another part of the session from the first minute, if you like, is our arrival activities. We understand that the kids have been at school all day. They're coming from different parts of London, maybe Essex, Hertfordshire, that some of them have got to sit in the car for quite some time. So when they get to football, it's really important for them to go and blow off steam a little bit, be that for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. So we have some loose structure with that. So that might be a chance for us to work on some IDP work or some individual development program work. It could be to work on a super strength. It could be to work on an area of development. But it's all prompting and just some suggestions from us. If they want to go and do a 3v3 or a 5v5 or practice free kicks or penalties, who are we to stop them doing that? Because when we hit 6 o'clock, it becomes a little bit more structured, obviously, and we fall in line with more what we've planned for the children to work on. So you've got to give them that time to go and be kids.
Enjoy the ball.
Enjoy the ball.
Yeah.
Spend time with other kids from other age groups.
Yeah.
As you've seen when you watch the session, with under 10s mixing with under 11s, under 9s mixing with under 10s. Socially, that's a really critical part of the session for me. If the kids don't have that opportunity, where are they going to get their freedom from, and that chance to just come in from school, shackles off, go and have some fun. And I think you then get more enthusiasm, more motivation, and perhaps not that question of when are we going to go and play a game.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they might be playing a game for the last 30 minutes prior to even you starting your session at 6 o'clock. That's a real valuable part of the evening for me.
So you've kind of got some rival activity that the players know when they turn up, they can get basically on a pitch and get a ball and start playing some football.
Yeah.
Then they'll start at 6 and they'll come to the change room and work through this.
Yeah.
Then they've done the flip chart bit and then your presentation.
Yeah.
What happens after the presentation?
So after the presentation, we'd often go through what the plan would look like for the evening. So from activity to activity, who's leading that. We try and keep it brief because we understand by then they're chomping at the bit to go out. So we talk to them about what their warm-up will look like. If they're doing strength and conditioning, who's their coach for that aspect of the session. What the next part of the session looks like. Is it going to be ball coordination? Is it going to be a positional game? Is it a tactical game? So we give them that idea so it's in their minds when they go out, what they're doing, and they can focus on the next bit. We have pre-session jobs. I don't know if you saw the laminate stuck to the next to the tactics board.
Yeah.
All the children are divided into the different days of the week, and they've all got responsibilities. That might be to fill up the water bottles. That might be to organise the footballs, to get the cones in the right places, whatever it might be. But that then links into after the session with the clear away, with the tidy up. And we've got challenges for that, which you saw as well. So there's a fair bit that goes on that they're responsible for. What I've managed to do now in the last, say, 6 to 12 months is to sort of stand away from that process a little bit. So rather than ask the question, have you filled the water bottles up? Are all the footballs back in the bag? Let them do it. If they get it wrong, they get it wrong. They'll probably only get it wrong once or twice before they understand that we need 20 footballs. We need the water bottles filled up.
And it's their responsibility.
And it gives them a reference. If they do forget, they can go back to that reference and think, oh, hang on a minute. If we didn't bring the bottles out, we did an hour and a half's training with less water than we should have had. It affects our performance. It can impair how you feel, obviously, with dehydration, for instance. So there's important things prior to the session that they're responsible for. I try and step away from that as much as possible.
Very good. I saw that on the wall.
Yeah.
And again, I hadn't noticed anybody mention it to the players at all when they just did things. Even through the session I was watching it, suddenly they'd be just clearing things away and putting things away. And I've not heard a single coach say a single thing to the players. They're just doing it. It was coming from an outsider and not knowing the background. It was weird but impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, super.
And kids like that responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think sometimes we forget with younger players. You said the key word there, trust. They trust them with something, because it makes them more grown up, doesn't it, and more involved in things. Super. Okay, so then we went out to the pitches.
Yes. So the first thing we do is we get them into 2 groups often, and half the group will go and do some sports science. They've got their own periodisation, that their themes that they're going to work on, and that might range from different types of motor skills, different types of running development, different types of movement patterns, some psychosocial elements, some perception action coupling, so some multi-sport. I think on that particular night they were playing American football. Yeah. And the kids love a chance to go and do a different sport. What our coaches at Arsenal are fantastic at is linking it back to football and some of the transferable skills, rather than just being a separate, detached, standalone multi-sport. It has to link back into the game. So that's why they're there.
How did you split the group? Different
ways to do it. Sometimes from Monday, we like the boys to be in the groups that they're going to be in the following Sunday for their game. Okay. Other times it can be as random as, boys, you've got 30 seconds to stand in an order. One thing I did last night, just to get them thinking, get them having some fun, was they had to stand in the order of who woke up the earliest.
Right.
So you got children ranging from getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the lad who got up at 5 o'clock in the morning said, I thought I was going back to school today. So even little things they help you to learn about them.
Yeah.
Ranging to the last player who got up at like 11:30, and then you can have some banter with him. And even that, it just creates a bit of fun. It gets them thinking. It gets them talking to each other, and it allows us just to again understand a tiny bit more about them.
The characters
that we don't see. We only ever see them wearing an Arsenal tracksuit or an Arsenal kit. So it just gives you an insight into what they're like at home.
Very good.
And that was last night. Divided it in half. You lot go there. You lot go there. We'll go ball each. We have a slightly sort of less content syllabus, if that's a way to express it, for our ball manipulation or our ball coordination now. And that ranges through the week from semi-opposed into more passively opposed, or passively opposed, into more semi-opposed, into fully opposed. So there are themes to work on through the week with their ball coordination as well. And that's fundamental for the kid to spend time with the ball straight from the start. Lots of touches, lots of different types of touches, lots of different elements of variation in pressure, 15 minutes, and then they would swap
Yeah.
with the sports science group, so they get a real good hit of both of those. That's their first half an hour generally.
Okay, makes sense. And you said you didn't mention fully unopposed. Then is that something you don't do at Arsenal? Unopposed technical practice?
No,
around unopposed. But I just wondered if you approach it for any reason in that way, or
it's a classic debate for me. Unopposed has a place. Unopposed for me, if I think about what a ball coordination unopposed session looks like for me, it's very multi-directional. It's very much the boys assessing time and space. So you've still got that contextual interference, that distraction from other players doing the same thing or similar things within your playing area. So that's like having opponents around you, so to speak. Whereas going back to my previous role years back at Dagenham, which was quite curver based, that might have been ball next to a cone, working on a particular move, all in a row. Looks very didactic, if you like, very autocratic. The boys are doing 30 seconds of this, 30 seconds of that. With the other way of doing unopposed ball coordination work is that they're going to be touching the ball in that same way, in different ways, with pressure around them. And I think you get more benefit from doing
some interference rather than
it's more dynamic, it's more multi-directional. I think static still has a place, but the way that we like to work and I like to work is unopposed, but with that interference going on around you.
So like that, so you split the group into two. You've got half over there doing their kind of fun, gamey kind of thing, which is great. I mean, the American football stuff, I watched that and it was excellent. And you could see the transferable skills, and not just the physical stuff or the technical things, but also the communication, the teamwork, the camaraderie, all that kind of stuff again. And then you obviously had this session going down with you on the other side, and you switch them around. So after the half an hour, what happens next?
So now we're starting to think more so about what the theme of the session is, which, for instance, on this particular night, it was counter-pressing. So they'd work in the same groups. So if we think about making as much of the time as we have, they'll stay in the same groups that they're in. So there's no sort of changing of groups. That in itself can eat into your time. And we are quite mindful of time always when we're delivering sessions. So we had a counter-pressing session, which was directional. And we had a session going on behind that to work on the opposite, if you like, of counter-pressing, counter-attacking. They generally work 15-20 minutes of both of those, and they'd get a go at doing both sessions as well. Key thing for me in any session is, can it be directional? Can it involve goals? How are you going to incorporate the goalkeepers? Because I don't know if you noticed that at that time at 6:30, the keepers have done near enough 45 minutes to an hour with the goalkeeping coaches. They've done all their isolation specific work, and they rock up and you think, right, how are you going to incorporate the goalkeepers? So if whilst you're planning a session, you can be mindful of that and think at this time, 3 goalkeepers are going to join you, 4 goalkeepers
itching to play,
and they want to play straight away. They don't want to come across
I saw that.
having finished their GK session and be stood there for a minute or two. They want to go straight into it. They're G'd up. They've trained for an hour already. They start earlier often than their outfield players. So you'd often get 2 goalies going to this part of the session, maybe 1 or 2 going to that part. But you've got to know what their role is within the session. And so, for instance, on that particular evening, it was a possession game that had direction based upon when you lose it, you've got 4 or 5 seconds to go and win it back. When you win it back, the incentive is that you can score. So one team we're looking at possession, one team we're looking at regaining possession to score. The multi-directional bit for the possession team was that they could use both goalkeepers. So the goalkeepers had lots of work with their feet in this example of session, but they had a lot of examples of shot stopping and making saves from the team trying to win the ball back, who were counter pressing, and that was the team that started with the ball. Counter pressing starts for me when you've got the ball, rather than working on it when you haven't got the ball. Because it's your reaction
when you lose
having lost it.
I get you. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, yeah. That's funny because obviously I was watching it, so I hadn't picked that up. I mean, which is interesting. I mean, I wasn't watching it always as close enough to hear what the coaches were saying. Yeah. But visually, I just would have assumed it was a team without the ball that you were working with, and that makes sense. I clicked in my head now.
So to give you a bit more detail, there it was an outnumbered session. So I was working with a group of 3 versus a group of 5, I believe. But with the goalkeepers, it was a group of 7. So in essence, it was 3 versus 7. But they can only work with one goalkeeper at a time in one half of the pitch. Once they played off that goalie, the possession team had to then go and find the other goalie. So they get building up from the back and possession-based focus as well. But if the 3 start with the ball, if they're working against a group of 5, what's the likelihood that they're going to be able to retain the ball longer than 5 or 6 seconds?
Yeah.
You'd think it's going to be quite minimal. They're going to lose the ball at some stage within some number of seconds, and then you can start to get your theme out. then you can start to look at what's their reaction. What does the first player look like? What does the second line of players look like? What does the furthest away player look like? That's where you get your playing principles out.
Makes sense, yeah. They'll work through that and then they'll switch around again, won't they? The two groups.
So they get a go at both of those types of sessions, and that would be usually another half an hour to 40 minutes worth of work.
And then what do you finish with?
So dependent on the night, on a Monday night, they would do a tournament. So we'd make that really competitive. There'd be lots of points at stake for different things. The goalkeepers would either link in with a team, or the goalkeepers would compete against each other. Which goalie can keep the most clean sheets? Which goalie makes the most saves? Goalkeepers love competing against each other, because ultimately, if you look at further down the line, they're going to be rivals. You can only play one goalkeeper at a time in a football match. So it's good that they've got that competitive edge from being young. Even though the goalkeepers we've got at Arsenal, they get on great. There's some edge to them, and they like the concept of competing against each other. I think it's really, really valuable part of their development as well. So it can range from a tournament into a positional game, which will be starting to think about Wednesday, Friday. Are you going to mould the players into the positions that they're going to be in for Sunday? Or it could be a full open-ended 7v7, 8v8 with big spaces. They're working to set blocks of time. There's going to be no coaching as far as the whistle blowing, you stepping in. You do all your coaching during the breaks. And then you get a lot of football fitness out of them that way as well. Yeah, working in big spaces. So it would depend on the night as to which of those types of finishing activities that you would do.
And then before we go back into the change rooms to finish off the session, during the practical itself, how much are you involved in this?
There's a lot of challenge from us as coaches. Me personally, I'm quite conscious of what I call convergent and divergent thinking. Convergent being when you perhaps pose a question, you've got a singular answer in your mind, or that there's only one answer to that question that you're posing to that player. So a lot of the work on that night was to try and breed divergent thinking amongst the players. So asking them more open-ended questions, again working them in small groups, pairs. Can they come up with the solutions themselves? I try and work on a lot of trial and error with the players, which can be hard at times because you might see an intervention opportunity and think, I'm going to go and blow the whistle, work on that moment, stop, stand still. If you can plan the session properly and effectively, they're going to get numerous opportunities to do whatever it is, that intervention you think when you were going to step in, they're going to have that chance again. It might look a bit different, but it will be similar, particularly in the session I've just described, because there are going to be times when they're going to lose the ball and they have to counter press to win it back. So watch them do it again. Watch them do it again. If they get it, they've saved you that chance of stepping in. The skill would come if they make similar mistakes or the same mistake time and time and time again. And then you've got to think of as a coach, how am I going to support and help them in this moment? And there's different ways, obviously, that you might be able to do that as well.
Yeah, just not rushing in first time necessarily and see how it pans out. Because they may have realised after. Yeah,
that's taken time to. Often when you're young and you're going through your badges, you want to impress. You want people to see that you know your subject knowledge is good, having done courses, and you want to impress people that might be watching your session.
And you want to help, don't you? You want to help straight away, don't you? Rush in there and solve the problem.
Willingness to help the players, and you think that's the best thing. So often it's with good intentions, but as you get a bit more experienced and you work at different levels of the game, such as I have, you start to understand that's not always going to be the best thing long term for the players. That might link in with the video that we showed at the end of the session. Yeah,
well, let's come to the end then. So the session finishes, jobs kick in then, the players put all the
That's
away.
Right. Just prior to the end of the session, we did the finishing practice, if you remember as well.
Yes. Yeah, important.
And we're trying to, this season, have as much finishing within the sessions as possible. That might be at the end of the session, it might be in the middle, it might be near the beginning. Again, make it competitive. Allow the children to have as many different types of finish as possible. I mean, you saw the session, it was very lively, it's very vocal. Again, that was GKs competing against each other. And that might only be a 10-15 minute blast right at the end, but it means that you're going to finish on a real high.
Players loved it, didn't they?
And the kids absolutely love a finishing session.
So that in every session you'll do a finishing practice at some point. Yeah.
Try to, yeah.
I mean, it worked well, I thought, at the end of particularly that session.
Yeah.
When the players are tired and worn out, there's still energy to go and smash a few balls in the back of the goal, right?
But that's an interesting comment you make there about when they're tired physically and mentally. That could be the difference.
Yeah, that 93rd minute of a game.
That's right. Yeah. And we talk to them in 11v11 terms sometimes because you can't lose sight of that's what the game is.
Yeah.
And we almost work backwards. I think you've got to start 11v11 and scale it back. But they watch football every night of the week. they see last second glory, last second winners, and it's often most goals are scored in the last 10 minutes of football matches, and that's often due to physical fatigue, physiological fatigue, psychological fatigue. So at the end of a session, it's a great chance for them to go and try and score goals in different ways when their mind's tired, when their legs are heavy.
Aching,
and that's really interesting to watch that compared to doing it when they're fresh at the beginning.
And then they tied everything away. I saw that straight away. So the gear was gone. Coach didn't do any of that stuff. The players did that.
But again, we linked that to the competition between the two teams on that night. Every activity had points to tally at the end of it. So they're competing against each other. So even the tidy up at the end, they kept their bibs on, if you noticed.
Yep.
So we could see which of the two teams, Blues or Reds, tidied up the quickest and were the most energetic to put the cones away and roll the goals off. And they had to do it within 3 minutes. The team that did it, in our mind, the best, as long as it was in 3 minutes, they got, I think it was a bonus 10 points for their team.
Yeah.
So as soon as you put a time scale on it and they compete, it's amazing how quickly they put those cones and those goals and those bibs away. And
you had a point system going throughout the whole session, didn't you? With the
whole week.
Teams. Is that what it is? Or is it for the whole week? Yeah. So okay, and that does make a difference. The players really brought into it, didn't they?
That's right.
Okay, so and then back in the change rooms, how did we finish off that session? I'm saying we now, like it was my session as well.
Oh, you was involved in it as anyone else.
How did you finish it off?
I think the debrief of a session is really important. I'm always mindful of how long that takes. I'm always mindful about how much information you give. Try and get the boys to feed back their own thoughts and findings as much as possible, be that to each other, to then feed back to the group. Or just by hands up, however you want to do it. But we went through a short debrief on the main playing principles of the theme, obviously, which was counter pressing, and then we showed them a little video, which I'm not too sure if you'd seen before. The butterfly
I hadn't
struggle.
seen it before. No.
So at that point, we were thinking about the concepts of struggle and of support, which links back into the stretch and support dials that we spoke about earlier. And at times, we have to step back as coaches to let them have that struggle. So it's a little 2-3 minute video that I must have seen on an FA course some time ago. It might be in the FA Advanced Youth Award or whatever it was. And I've always remembered it. And it's a real smart, intelligent 3-minute video about a boy who's watching a butterfly, and he's watching this chrysalis, and he's absolutely dying for this butterfly to come out of the chrysalis, and he wants to see it fly, etc. So he's watching it day after day from his bedroom window. And he notices one day that there's a little tear in the chrysalis and the butterfly starts to appear. And he's thinking, oh, I'm going to see it. I wonder what colours it's going to be. Is it going to fly, etc. He thinks the butterfly looks like it's getting stuck. So for 2 or 3 days in a row, the butterfly looks like it's jammed within the chrysalis. It can't get out. It's stuck. It's in trouble. It needs help. It needs someone to lend a hand. So the little boy goes out with a small pair of scissors and he opens the chrysalis even bigger so that the butterfly can come out. And he thinks, yeah, I've helped it. That's what it needed. But he looks at the butterfly and it's got a swollen body. Its wings are all shriveled up. It can't fly. And he doesn't know why. And then some of the things we spoke about and some of the text and some of the way that the story was annotated was that sometimes you've got to step back. You've got to let, in this instance, the butterfly needed the struggle. It needed 2 or 3 days to get out of the chrysalis, to form its body in the right way to allow it to sustain its life. In this instance, the butterfly died. And we used it as an analogy, and we used lots and lots of metaphors and storytelling and analogies with the kids to give them a reference to life and to football and how they're intrinsically linked. And in this example, it was, don't always expect the help to come from us. Don't always expect it to come from parents or adult role models in your life. Sometimes you've got to make your own errors and mistakes, and it's how you learn, it's how you grow stronger. And then we set them a little task to provide an example of when they have struggled in their life. And I try to reiterate to them to try and think of something that's non-football related. That might involve you growing up with a brother or sister. It might be a mum or dad story. It could be a school story. It could be another sport that you play and a story entwined with that. Took away that task, got some really interesting ones come back that obviously you've not seen, and they like that non-football analogy type of approach.
Yeah.
but we always try and link it back to the game ultimately.
Yeah, there's a message there.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I got home late that evening, but the next morning over breakfast with my two boys, I told them the story about the butterfly.
Did you?
Good, it sticks in your head, doesn't it? It's those things.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
Again, what doesn't come maybe across on the podcast was how it was managed, because it was quite depressing, the story, if you look at it in isolation. But it was about actually the importance of struggle. And what I was really impressed, again, with the players, they got it. They were watching it and engaged in the video, but also engaged in responses, all of them, and you could see it having an impact in a positive way, in addition to what you just spent the last 2 hours doing outside on the pitches. So
yeah, and also it links in with the way that how I like to behave on the touchline during a game on a Sunday. And the boys had mentioned this to me before I'd even explained why I am like I am on the touchlines. I don't say hardly anything. I watch, I assess, I observe. I've often got a little notebook that I'm writing things down, but I'm not one that's going to stand there and dictate and be one of those joystick coaches, if you like, or FIFA coach, and just try and dictate what the boys do when they're on the pitch. That's their chance. That's their chance to play, to enjoy, to try and transfer some of the things you've worked on 3 times a week, every week. These boys do a lot of work with us, so you've got to stand back. And
it's your chance to see, isn't it, if it's getting through or not? Because if you're telling them, how are you going to possibly know if it's getting through or not? And okay, they might not get it right first time, but give them 2 or 3 goes at it, and then suddenly they might get that memory recall of what you've done in the sessions.
Even as recently as last week, I referred back to this butterfly struggle story, and I gave them a little process that could help them when they've made a mistake. So for me, the first phase is, can you try and correct it yourself? Can you be an independent thinker? Can you be self-critical? Secondly, and this is just as valuable, is can a teammate recognise that player's made a mistake?
Yep.
So that then links into your social interaction between the boys and how much of how much team ethic there is within the group. Thirdly, can they come and ask for help from the coach? And that shows for me great confidence, great maturity, because it's not easy always to ask for help in any walk of life, particularly when you're a young player in an academy such as
with your peers
as
around you and stuff.
That's
when
right.
You're 10 years old.
That could be construed as a weakness if you're asking for help. It obviously means that you've not been able to sort it out yourself. But far from it, we embrace questions and we like to think of ourselves as very approachable role models to the kids. And then lastly, we step in and help.
Yeah,
that's how I think of it in those 4 different ways.
This is very similar. I don't know if you know the Mark Bennett rule of 3. Is on that line, which is great. But it is about that accountability. And can you look at yourself first, and then as teammates look at each other and learn how to challenge each other in a constructive way. And I've seen 7-year-olds do this. So a lot of teams don't do it. But you're right. It's never too early to learn this stuff, and it's such a good life skill. I hope what's come across from the listen to in the podcast is the session itself, because it was wonderful. Honestly, it really was.
Oh, thanks.
The whole thing, it just gelled together, and you could see the impact it had on the players. And I'd always look at a session and I'm looking at the players. I'm kind of walking it as if I was in their shoes. What would I enjoy that? Would I, am I being left out? Would it work for everyone? And every single one of those boys loved the session, got a lot out of it, and you could see how it fits into a bigger picture. I'm conscious now, if we go back to the beginning a little bit and where you are now then, there's obviously a lot of psychosocial stuff in what you do. There certainly wasn't that session that I saw. Is that something you've been doing from the outset, going back to 2000 and what you were doing? And I probably know the answer to this, but where you were. And if not, how has it changed and why has it changed?
I think if I was to have the ability to travel back in time and watch the first few sessions or even the first few years of me coaching, I'd probably be quite horrified. And it would look probably like a different sport to how I perceive children's football coaching to look now. How it's changed, this is across a 20-year time span. So I think as you become older and you go through different things in your life, different disappointments, and you reflect upon things, and you read more, you research more, you listen to podcasts, for instance, which have become more of a thing in the last few years. I've always got a book to hand. I think I've got 3 or 4 books on the go at the moment. You just become more researched and more self-aware of the elements of being a young player and what's required. Whereas back in late 90s, early 2000s, I'd read a book, as in like a drills book, or look at a session on YouTube and try and apply it to the kids that I was working with. And I think that's still something that coaches may do to this day. But just because that session is on YouTube, and if it was delivered by whoever it was, who's to say that session is going to work with your players? They might be completely different age, different backgrounds, different experiences, different ability, different level. So it's taken me to get to this point really in the last 3 to 4, 5 years. I think near enough since I was full time that I start to appreciate being in and around the football environment for a long time, well, many, many hours of each day, for most days of the week. You become quite immersed in the environment. And it's not just about football. At Southend, we've had, obviously the youth team would be in all day, every day. So you'd see maybe the odd meeting that they were in with the head of coaching, some one-to-one analysis. You'd see them be told that they weren't going to play at the weekend. You start to appreciate that it's more than just about the 90 minutes on a weekend. Yeah. And then for me, that then links into how I then perceive the absolute critical importance of the psychosocial corner, and having done the FA Advanced Youth Award 3 years ago, which for me is hands down the best course I've ever done. Yeah. And some of the stuff you learn on that is fully transferable to any age group and any type of player, because it's learning about life.
Yeah. What I saw from the session is a really well thought out session for the players you had that was football focused, but wrapped in this kind of psychological, social, life skill kind of package, you know. And it was kind of thing, actually, you know, even if my kid doesn't grow up to go and play for Arsenal or have a career in football, which statistically is more likely than however good they are right now, that this is not wasted time. You know, this is really well spent time, because they're going to get a whole bunch out of this. And I had the privilege to talk to the players. You were gracious to let me have a chat with some of the players during the session, and I was blown away by. You always get the handshakes at the academies now, and the players are always polite and respectful, because that's a given, and rightly so. But it was more than that: articulate, clever, intelligent, bit of banter, bit in a fun way. Not banter as in, you know, cockiness, but just, you know, confidence more than banter. Actually, is probably the better word to say. And there's no doubt that, well, I'm sure you recruit players based on those skills as well, but that's nurtured in the environment you've created there at Arsenal, and it was fantastic to see. I have got, if you don't mind, probably a final question for you, because I'm pushing my luck with your time here. I don't know how easy this will be to do. It's lovely, and hearing the session is brilliant, and the TVs in the changing rooms, and having the players for 6 hours plus a week. But I know, being a grassroots coach, and what some of my listeners will be thinking to themselves, that's brilliant, Paul, and you know, I'd love to do some of that stuff, but I get my players maybe an hour a week. If I'm lucky, maybe an hour and a half or 2 sessions. I've got to develop a team, because actually on Sundays we are a grassroots team, and we're not just looking to bring individuals through. So is there any tips you can give us in our space? And I know it's not easy, but to say, look, not even tips, just guidance, you know, that you think, if you were coaching my under 7s or under 11s, or if you're going back to what you were doing back in 2000, what tips would you give yourself, or would you give me?
Tough question.
Yeah.
Because I'm really mindful about how, like you just mentioned there, how long you have your players for, which if you're lucky might be an hour to maybe 90 minutes a week. And that might be reduced even further by, I don't know what's the setup on a training night for you guys, but in my experience, it could be you stood on the side of the AstroTurf, you're waiting for the previous session to finish, they're 5 minutes late, you've got to get on, you've got to set up, you've got 3 or 4 kids that run in late, you then got less than an hour. It's some of the hardest things in the world, and I will say it again, that how I've got to the point I am now is fully down to being a grassroots coach originally. Some of the things I think are important, I think you've got to consider the on the pitch and the off the pitch. So ultimately, does the majority of your session look like the game? Does it look like, does it involve the decisions that link into what they're going to be doing at the weekend? Do you divide your time up wisely? Do you balance between individual work and team play? How do you do that? Which individuals do you decide to work on at any given time? In an hour and a half, you can't work with all individuals, all 15 individuals, and give them the time that they deserve. So how do you divide your time up across the working month, for instance? Your session setup, I think there's a skill with that as well. Minimal setup time is absolutely fundamental for me. So can your setup at the beginning look like what it's going to look like at the end? Be that hiding cones, under cones, goals that get pushed back 5 yards that they're off the pitch, goals coming onto the pitch, so you've not got to heave them 100 yards across from one AstroTurf to the other, or the other part of the pitch. So minimal setup time. Therefore, therefore your ball rolling time is going to be towards what the FA suggests it should be, which is 70% upwards.
And less behaviour issues, right? Because they're engaged,
that's right,
not switching off.
because they haven't got time to misbehave, even if they wanted to. Activities during water breaks. So that could be just conversation. That could be talking about the game at the weekend, the Premier League game, Super Sunday. Ask them a question about the game. Can you make your sessions competitive? So this session that we've talked about in this podcast, the whole session was competitive. Kids naturally want to compete with each other. So can you make all your activities have a winning team and a losing team at the end? How you frame that and the support you give both, that again is part of the craft of being a football coach. Using their language, I think, is key. What are they interested in, kids in the foundation phase? What films do they watch? What music do they listen to? What TV characters are they interested in watching after school and at the weekends? That, for me, shows that you're willing to step into their world. And I think you get some good buy-in for your session if you show an interest in them as young people, obviously. I think I said this a little while ago, the importance of differentiating in the session. So it could be a standard small-sided game, but then you're starting to pinpoint individuals with certain tasks and certain learning objectives. This player, you score double points if you score with your second favourite foot or your non-dominant foot. We call it second favourite foot. I think it's more positive to call it that. Something that I like and I see a lot of value in is an element of coaching called spotlighting, which is when you might work with one player. We call it a drive-by, or part of it is the drive-by. But you position yourself in such a way that you can still see the game being played. So coaching position, body position of the coach, trying to avoid turning your back on the game, trying to avoid the boys being, when you're talking to them, having too much distraction behind you. So another session, another game. Try and position your body so that their focus is on them and you. But going back to the spotlighting, that could be one-to-one with a player, but then you're using your sort of peripheral vision, if you like, and your pitch perception so that you're still seeing what's going on in the game. Part of the challenge of that is that you've got to make sure that the player that you're talking to doesn't feel that you're not giving them your undivided attention. Yeah. So that's a really smart and that's pretty cool teaching sort of behaviour, if you like.
Yeah.
Lastly, for on the pitch, watch as many sessions as you can. Pep calls the best coaches the best thieves. So for the last 20 years, God knows how many sessions I've watched, but I've always got a notepad on the go. I've always got a pen on the go, and be that something that pops into my mind or a session that I've watched, whether that's online or preferably one-to-one, and you're watching the session itself as you did when you watched my session. Make notes, write down things that you think would work with your players, ask questions, but just watch as many different coaches work as often as you can, and steal as many ideas as you can, and make them your own, tailor them to how you want to work and to your players. Session for this group, if you picked it up and dropped it into your group, it might not necessarily work. So again, the skill with a coach is how do you make that session work for you and for your boys.
That's a good point, and if that is the truth, then I'm going to be a great coach because I stole all of your session. But I adapted it.
That's the main thing. Make it your own.
If I watched your session 5 years ago, I'd have been very much looking at where you put the cones, where you were standing, how big the pitch area was, where the goals were placed. And even though I remember the session very well and that stuff, I was much more interested in more the environment and the other stuff, the way you were asking questions, when you were asking questions, how much time you're giving the players to think about stuff. It was that, and I think that's the coach evolution, isn't it? When you you move away from maybe the X's and O's a bit more towards the other side of it. And it's not that the where the cones go is not important, because it is, like you say, to make the session run smoothly, it is, but it's not the be all and end all. And actually, sometimes getting the other stuff right is more important than getting where you put your cones right.
Yeah.
So that was on the pitch stuff.
Yes.
Have you got off the pitch stuff?
Yeah, I've got some ideas. I think club values is really, really important. Speak to the parents. And rather than it just being a big, fantastic visual induction right at the start of the season, which might look great, and all your key messages about your philosophy, your parent expectations, your player expectations, your coach expectations, all being at the start. And then you go through the whole season and numerous things might happen and you refer back to the start. Parents might have missed it, for instance, they might have been on holiday, or for whatever reason they might have missed it. My advice would be to revisit those induction events, if you like, those presentations, however you want to term them, and do them sporadically throughout the season, but more watered down versions. Little 20-minute workshop working with the parents, so you always get constant buy-in and they understand why you're making decisions in the way that you are. For me, that gets them on board. I think of that triangle of support around the player. I think player, I think parent, I think coach, and there has to be that interlinking between all three. And it's only done for me by working as as often with the parents as you can.
Being consistent in the message and constantly put it
And
out
it's just
there.
consistent throughout the whole year, rather than being all top heavy
You've
at one end of the
described
season.
me there. I send it all out. I love my little start of season messages, but that's it. I send it out and I think I'm done. But you're right. You've got to revisit it, haven't you? And
it's
and just
amazing
keep
how
putting the
quickly
spotlight on it.
a parent might forget something that was mentioned even like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Never mind 9-10 months ago, as it might well have been. Planning, of course, any advice would involve planning. Be aware of your timings, but ensure flexibility within the session. So I remember when I first started coaching, I'd have my session plan and I'd be absolutely adamant that I was going to get out all the elements in my session with the timings, 10 minutes of this, 20 minutes of this, my break's going to be here. Yeah, it's not as easy as that. It might be that you set up a 10-minute activity and the kids are absolutely buzzing off whatever it is you're doing, or they might not understand some of the principles within that 10 minutes. So be flexible, be adaptable, try and make sure that your delivery is what the players need at any one time, and it's not just being stubborn to think that you've got to stick to a session plan. But planning is still important. Be thick-skinned, can't please everybody every second of the day and all the time. So there are going to be disappointed parents at any one stage throughout the season, for whatever reason that might be. When I was younger, that would really get to me, and it would upset me, and I would think I'm trying my best and I'm doing what I think is best for the team and for the players.
We don't always get it right, do we, as coaches? You know,
right.
Sometimes we know it's gone wrong ourselves, haven't they?
So
told.
A part of that, I think, is don't be scared of being vulnerable. Try and make sure that you're comfortable with being uncomfortable as a coach. Step out of your comfort zone. If
you're going to challenge yourself, you're going to get a few things wrong, right?
Yeah.
Same with our players again.
That's right. And some of the boys in the current under-10s, they will have no problem with correcting you if you get something wrong. And if I think back to when I first started, I would probably then try and challenge them back. But right now, I hold my hands up. No, I got it wrong, fellas. You're right.
We're learning together, right? We're doing this together as a journey as well.
And then you just feel that everyone's on the same page together, rather than it being about the coach and about the players. It's about everyone in it together. Try and be as approachable as possible. Emphasize the importance of making mistakes. I call failure feedback. I say success leaves clues. So if you get something right, why? What was the process to allow the outcome to be deemed success? The best feedback you can get is when you get things wrong. Really interesting comment from a player last week who said, we were talking about winning games convincingly and challenging games and the difference. One particular player said he would rather lose a game 2-1 than win the game 15-0.
Good mindset.
And that blew me away a lot, because that was a 9-year-old saying that to me. And I was, that's just fantastic. He'd rather have the hardest game of his life with the highest level of challenge, whether that was against a big rival of ours or whoever it was against on tour. He'd rather that was the case and lose than in his mind.
Coast to an easy win, which hasn't challenged or stretched him.
Which hadn't stretched him and hadn't made him a better player in person at the end of it. And I thought, that's job done almost for us if we can get players to think like that.
When you've got an 8 or 9-year-old with that kind of mindset, then they've got half a chance of doing well, right? I think if they can enjoy the resilience and the challenge.
Yeah, and if you want success long term, those are the sorts of comments that I think you need to embrace as much as possible. And then my last couple of points would be that the culture that you create in your environment comes before any sense of result. The culture precedes the result. Can you get the environment right? And then lastly, and we spoke about this earlier before we came on air, is the question that the players ask you shouldn't be when are we going to play a game. It should be which game are we going to play. So you made a comment that you play games at the start. Your whole session should be about football. It should be what types of games, what types of conditions and constraints are in your games, rather than leaving the last 20 minutes for a game. And often it's not even that.
Yeah.
And then giving the boys traditionally, or the old school way of framing it might be, if you behave yourself, if you do this at the right time, you're going to get a game as a reward. They're there to play the game. So give them opportunities to play the game.
Paul, superb. I mean, we've spoken a lot. I think we've done about 20 episodes now, and what comes up quite often is environment. We spoke about player ownership, behaviour, all these things. And I think in one session, for me, I saw it all in it. And it was great for me to see it. It was great for me to learn by watching. The kind of things you can only get by coming to observe, I think. How much we try to get it out on this podcast, you have to come and see what you did with that team and that session. I know that's what you do on a weekly basis, several times a week, in fact. I would like to come back again and watch another session, if that's okay, at some point. I learned loads from it. Just to be perfectly clear about this, I'm involved at the club, and there's about 30 kids now in a year group, another 80 in the slightly older, another 50 in the older year group. And some of the practices that I saw from you have gone into those sessions with those players. So, you've affected positively, I hope, 80 odd players within our club, from one session. So that's the power of what you're doing there at Arsenal, and the power of kindly letting you share what you do with us. And I hope that other listeners will get something out of that, and that kind of goes down again as well.
Makes me so happy that one 90-minute session can have an impact like that to so many other kids, and that just makes me feel really pleased that football is the vehicle for that, and all aspects of the game.
You spent your last 20 years wisely.
Yeah. It's taken me a long time to get there, but
it's not easy though, right?
No, but for you to say that, and that it's had an impact upon other children that I may not even ever have the chance to watch.
They will never know. Yeah. I'll be claiming the glory, but
of course, it's all about you.
Yeah.
But I'm really sort of thankful for you, and appreciative of you saying that.
Well, I'm so thankful for your time. I've pushed my luck considerably today, but thank you so much. If there's any chance at some point in the future getting back on again to talk about something else, we've not mentioned futsal, we've not mentioned player behaviour, rotation, goalkeepers. So there's another thing we can do, but maybe 6 months or a year's time we'll get you back on if that's okay with you. Brilliant.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, and I'd love to come on again and talk about some other stuff.
Super stuff. Thanks, Paul. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was the episode, Mark. I know you weren't there at the time, but you listened to it since. I'd be keen to know what your thoughts are on it, and whether or not I managed or Paul managed to get across kind of just what the session was like, and maybe how effective it was.
Yeah. So I guess as ever, I was super disappointed that I wasn't able to be there for the session, because I know when you watched it, you come back and you kind of spoke so highly of it, and you thought so much of the session that was put on. But I guess secondly, I was disappointed I'm not there to kind of meet Paul and be part of the discussion, because I think it was a fantastic discussion, I must say. I think you're coming on quite nicely as the host, actually.
Well, you just said no QPR fans, so what can I do? There was never any of it.
Actually, we haven't spoken about QPR too much on the podcast
we'll
this
save
season.
That. That'd be an hour in itself.
But let me just say, before we kind of get into some of the points that I've kind of put down here, I must say Paul come across really well. Just the level of his expertise for a start, he just really just spoke through things so clearly and come across so well. He come across enthusiastic as well, without being too enthusiastic, if you know what I mean. He just come across well, and he actually seemed like a humble guy. I wasn't there, I haven't met him, but that's the way he come across to me. He seems like the kind of guy that you could go to and have a kind of good conversation about coaching. So
in real life, there's nothing like that at all. That's exactly how he was, Mark. You can really get a sense of spending 10 minutes just chatting to him what his sessions would be like almost. I kind of felt like I knew what to expect anyway after chatting to him before we went to the first session, and he's exactly that and more, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think like sometimes you go to these academies and you go there thinking you're going to this is the Arsenal Academy. The session's just going to be great because they're going to have the best coaches there, which I'm sure they do. But it doesn't actually always transpire, does it? So we've been to some academies and you watch and you think, wow, maybe I would do it a little bit differently to that. I'm sure there's reasons why they do it, but
you're not quite as blown away all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You?
Obviously, you went to this one, and I could tell as soon as you come back how kind of blown away you were by the session and things. So quite refreshing when you actually go there, and it is really good, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because not that we've been disappointed before, but yeah, you're not always quite as enthused afterwards about how I can see that, what they're doing and why. And there probably is a rationale beyond our understanding of these things. But certainly with this one, it was all over the place, and you couldn't really, there's nothing to question. It was all like, wow, that's really impressive. Yeah. So I guess, Mark, just what you picked out of it really from listening to the episode and what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
Anything particular that stood out for you?
Yeah, so I've made a couple of pages of notes, actually. I've highlighted...
You made more than me, and I was there with you.
I've highlighted the kind of key points, which I'm kind of going to take away. So I'll just going to go through them, and it'd be good to get your view as well. I think it was quite early on in the discussion, he was talking about the use of multi-sports, and I think perhaps in the session that you'd seen, maybe they've done American football or they've done something
with it,
yeah, and it just made me think, actually, like, why don't I do more of these kind of things in my session? I've done, like, when I've put on a kind of finding space type session, I've done like netball, so you can't kind of move, you've got to find space to receive the ball. So I've done things like that, but I've never really just put on a session because of maybe a multi-sport, because I think maybe the boys enjoy it or the girls enjoy it. is something different for them. So definitely that's something I'm going to take away and think, can I do something different with them that's not football related, but is going to help them in terms of the way they move and the body shape and things like that. So that's definitely one thing I'm going to take away. And I just think it's just a great idea. You are limited in grassroots coaching. You are limited how much time you have, but I think you can probably fit that in, right? Every couple of weeks you could fit it in.
It's not a waste of time, that's for sure. I mean, even tonight we did a session, didn't we, with the younger ones?
Yeah.
And by chance there was a handball there.
Yeah.
So we played the first 20 minutes playing handball. It was an hour session, and made 20 minutes for handball. The kids loved it, right?
They did,
And they, we changed the rules a little bit to adapt it. Anything that's getting them moving, their bodies twisting, turning, they're engaged something different, and it keeps it fresh, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And they use it really well. I mean, you can see it's well thought out there because they think about the session since how it's going to transfer into the topic and stuff. So it's not just kind of thrown last minute like this was tonight, but definitely an underrated, probably, or an underused technique probably in coaching, but even at grassroots, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And it also made me think just the importance of doing other sports as well, not just doing football. I know actively over the summer I've tried to get my two sons doing different sports like badminton and cricket, just trying to do just different things, tennis, rather than just playing football. In previous summers they've just played a lot of football, and I just thought this summer let's have a rest, let's do something different. And actually they've both come back pretty fresh, ready to play football in time September comes.
And that's the word, keeping it fresh, isn't it? Keeping it like fun still and engaging, and not necessarily for the next 3 months, but the next 3+ years, right, with the kids.
Yeah, definitely. My next point, and I think this was a great point, and I think this goes for anything in life actually. And he was talking about his kind of background, his history, and he was just talking about his time in the US and experiencing different cultures and things like that. And then he'd done some kind of futsal, and he's talking about Cova a little bit. And then he said he's kind of had like knocks and rejects in his time as a coach. I think you just mentioned the point about just kind of bouncing back, and you in life you're going to get these knocks, these kind of rejects, especially as a coach, right? You just kind of got to bounce back and kind of get on with it and just take it on the chin and just move on, right? I think it probably comes back to the growth mindset that we were talking about, I think in the last episode or the episode before around. I just think it's important as a player, for sure you got to do that, but also as a coach, you're just going to get on with things. Sometimes a session isn't going to go great, just reflect on it and learn and kind of move on.
Yeah, and having that desire to want to keep learning, isn't it? I think that's the other thing. Not thinking I've cracked it after 1 year and I know it all. It's actually to want to keep bettering yourself and learn. Yeah,
one of the favourites of ours, arrival activities. We do a lot of free play. He spoke a lot about unstructured play. He didn't use the word free play. I think he used the word unstructured play for the players. It was really, he spoke about playing with different age groups. Having freedom, the shackles are off, them having fun, because there's going to be a session where they're going to work hard. It kind of makes them think less about a game at the end because they've just played a game. I just think it kind of backs up a lot of the stuff that we've done over the last few years with our teams in terms of that arrival activity, just getting them playing games, giving them that kind of playground type environment where they can make the rules up, they can be the referees, they can be the goal scorers. I think it was excellent.
I think what comes out, having seen it, the way they do it there, and also I think how we do it similar, is it gives the players a sense of it's their session. It's not just ours and we put it on for them. When they rock up and they can kind of almost just play themselves straight away, it's not coach centred from the very start. It's not us and the cones are out and the whistle's going and now let's go. They've got that first 10, 15 minutes or longer, potentially they had a bit longer at Arsenal, just to go and play and do what they wanted to do, They make up small pitches, but some were taking pens, some were doing this. I was watching from the window upstairs, actually, could see out over the pitches, and it was funny to see there was not a coach out there. They just and the kids got there and some were chatting about stuff, others were taking smashing balls at the crossbar, but they were enjoying themselves. They had their time, and it just shows you that environment's not all about the coaches, it's about them, and a bit of trust there as well. I know you can't do that necessarily on day one, week one, but when they under 10s, they've been there for a few seasons potentially, that you build up to that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's the psychological stuff that goes with it as well, not just the and it's good. That's good time. It's not a waste of time. It's time well spent.
And I think the players appreciate it, right? Because you're given you're trusting them to kind of own the session themselves a little bit.
Responsibility, isn't it?
Responsibility, exactly. And I think it's all good. Another thing that he mentioned around was quite interesting. I think how he split the teams up. I think he said he lined the players up by the person who got up earliest in the morning to the latest in the morning, which I thought was really interesting, because the way he kind of sold it was around it creates them having fun, they're talking, they're engaging, it gives him a bit of background on the players, what time they're getting up, I guess. So I thought it was really interesting because normally the way I would do it is I give that responsibility to the players just to decide. We've got 2 teams, you got to make the teams up. Like when we first started, we used to kind of like spend a lot of time like, you go this side, we try to like make it
fair.
even, make it fair, right?
To do,
yeah.
Right?
But I think that's an interesting alternative to just getting the players to own it. Because actually, you are. It's almost like an ice-breaking type event, right? If you're at work and a training course, it's like an icebreaker. And I think it'd be quite interesting to do that. And I can imagine it'd take 5 minutes when they're all talking, they're trying to get it. But I'm sure they would have a lot of fun, and it creates that social side of the. Ticks the social box, right?
100%. I think if the players know that actually when you're going to split the team into 2 teams or 3 or 4 teams, there's always going to be a thing to do that, like who got up first, who was the latest to bed last night, something that they'd love that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And it gets their brains thinking, it gets them interacting a little bit, it makes it fun again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And what a cool way to split teams up.
Yeah.
And you could kind of, if you're clever with it, you could pick some really cool stuff that gives you insight into the players themselves and how they are and how they're feeling.
Exactly.
But also, does the job as well.
Yeah.
So it's one of those little nuggets that
definitely
can add to the session.
And I imagine you actually start to see some of the leaders coming through as well, because I'm sure there's 1 or 2 of the players are starting to direct things and when did you get up? Right, you go there. When did you go there? And this kind of thing. So you start to see that kind of leader element coming through as well. And
I reckon on that point that maybe the players that are quieter at the beginning, when you do that the first few weeks or months, suddenly they'll find their voice, right? They've got to speak up and get involved. So once you've done that for a period of time, they're all leaders, right? And that's what you want as well, isn't it? They're all happy to talk and contribute and stuff. And that's the best way of getting them there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Or definitely one of the ways of getting
there. Yeah. It would... I have to comment on this because he mentioned it around the unopposed kind of skills corner or ball coordination work.
I was going to edit that bit out.
Surprised you didn't edit it out.
I couldn't do his voice to kind of dub it over.
I think he called it ball coordination work, actually. And he said that they have unopposed in there, but I guess it would be more on a variable basis because there's confusion. It's not just interference. You're not just kind of going around a cone, etc. Which I think you have to have. For me, I'm not an advocate of just dribbling around cones. Just to be clear, exactly.
Got a cone.
I think you need some interference and things like that. So, but he did obviously also talk about that. I think in conjunction with even in 1v1 kind of environment, taking it on. So again, I think that's kind of aligned to some of my thinking and probably similar to you a little bit.
Yeah.
I loved his point around finishing. Every session we have finishing at the end. I think I've done that a lot, or I think either do finishing or crossbar challenge or something fun. I think you made a good point around by that point they're probably really tired, but they find the energy because everyone loves shooting, right? And each kind of shooting practice, everyone loves shooting practice. Even the coach is going to get involved sometimes in shooting practices. So I just love that. It's just an easy thing to do, right?
Definitely. And what I saw was the session was hard work and the boys were tired at the end of it. And they probably had that last bit of energy. They could just about do that. But just to be clear about the shooting practice, it was like a bit of a wave practice. So it wasn't just get a ball, have a shot kind of thing. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it was like an energetic kind of end-to-end kind of just shoot on target kind of thing. It was a high energy, like 3 or 4 minutes to finish off with. Yeah. And I love that. I thought, we often finish with pens or something else, which is fine. I think maybe it worked, but actually push them a little bit harder for a real like intense kind of 3-minute shoot on sight kind of practice. It worked for them, and I'll be trying that definitely.
Yeah, and I think the finishing. I've done kind of half a session with different shooting practice, either being close range finishing or long range finishing, and I've only ever done it once, and I kind of vowed after that, and upon reflection, I would never do it again because I just don't think it really worked. Maybe it's just the session I had planned, but it just felt like it didn't really work. It would always need, for me, that kind of finishing would either need to be an end of a session. Maybe
was it a shooting was it a finishing session?
It was more of a finishing. Right. I think a good half of it was the first half was more around kind of ball manipulation and one-on-ones and things, and then I went into finishing. And then I think we played a game. There was a game based around the finishing as well. It just didn't work, and maybe I could put on a better session for sure. But I just feel this is a good way of doing it, kind of having it at the end, because that's, as I said, that's what kids like doing, right? They like scoring goals. They like shooting at goal.
And
I think the challenge,
game,
just one thing,
you can be tired, right?
Yeah,
in
you can
game,
be.
And then you've got to try and score when you
exactly
really want out and stuff.
But I do think for coaches there is a challenge there that a lot of coaches still have players lined up, and they'll be passing a ball into feet, passing it back and shooting. There's a challenge for coaches to find something a bit more dynamic in terms of the finishing activities they do, have it varied, different parts of the body, different areas, keeping the fun element as well, rather than kind of having these big cues.
Point, Mark.
So
the danger with finisher practice is it becomes a bit cue oriented, and this wasn't about cueing. This was very much about. It was a game with just lots of shooting opportunities. Yeah, that was the thing. And you're right there. Some were close range, some were long distance. It was just a game with loads of shots going on, and that's probably a good way of doing a finishing practice, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I loved his butterfly story. I thought that was brilliant, and really kind of
quite powerful. That
it was powerful. Yeah, emphasised the kind of importance of going through that kind of struggle. Right, I thought it was a really, really good story, and I was actually interested because obviously it's not. With the kind of the butterfly dying, you kind of think, is that right to use for young kids? I don't know. I kind of I was thinking at the time, is that would I use that? I'm not sure I would, but clearly he's used it and it works. And I think you said you used it with your two boys, and
I told
and he
the
said
story.
It was quite powerful.
But yeah, I was watching the kids, and I thought the same thing watching because it was almost a bit of a tearjerker, really.
Yeah.
But it's funny, the kids didn't seem emotionally attached, but they were engaged in the story, Yeah. And I guess the video does it in a very clever way, so probably better than I explained it. You'd have to watch the video to really get it, but the kids got the message, in the right way, without it being kind of giving anyone nightmares or well, I don't think it did.
Yeah, it was very good. And then I think without kind of going through the whole interview again, there's so many good things. I think my two final points. He made a point around making sessions competitive. I think this is where you kind of try to bring it back to more of a grassroots environment. What he would do from a grassroots environment. I think one of the things one of his points was making sessions competitive, which I think is absolutely spot on, right? Yeah, I you take the futsal sessions you do, and most of your training sessions, they're just super competitive, right? You can see they're almost like the boys are training as hard as they're playing matches, and that's the way it should be. You need that competitive element in there for sure.
But when you add in a scoring system or something, then you just get more out of the session, don't you? Because the players work a bit harder. Because it's fun, right? It would be the same if we were playing a game, wouldn't we? If you're kicking around, it's not the same. It's the minute the whistle goes, it's a game. Then you just all try that much harder. I think whatever you do, you'll get more out of your session by making it competitive. Yeah. Even if it was an unopposed dribbling around cones practice, you can make it a game out of that, couldn't you? And you could do that, and suddenly everyone's going to try a bit harder to do it a bit quicker.
Yes.
Therefore, it's getting more like a match because that's a match speed now.
Yeah.
The intensity's there. Plus, you've got to do with winning and losing, which is great as well. So yeah, that is a good point, and one that transfers great into grassroots football.
Yeah, totally agree. And there was actually a lot of points. So when he was going through that part with you, there's a lot of points in there. I think the other thing was minimal setup time, which is critical, right? I think you don't need loads of cones. You don't need massive spaces to put a training session on. I think he was saying put a cone under a cone, or push the goals back so you can just bring them on, kind of thing. They were just basic points, right? And I think probably 5 or 6 years ago would have been how many cones can we get on the pitch?
We would have set up probably each practice separately,
exactly.
wouldn't we? And then move the kids around to the practice, which if you've got the space, that kind of works, I guess. But actually, you don't. You need 6 cones and a bit of thinking and a couple of goals and put the balls in the right place with the bibs in the right place, and it's the whole session runs a bit smoother, doesn't it? But that comes down to, again, 20 years of experience for Paul, doesn't it? And
it does,
you learn these things, not necessarily 20 years to get to that stage, but you don't do it on your first year often. That's part of the evolution of coaching, I guess, is just knowing how to put your cones in the right place and let the session peel out a little bit. On that note, I always work backwards. I kind of think, right, because how's it going to finish at the end? And then almost make sure I've got that set up. That's usually the bigger space anyway. And then kind of work back from that to what I've got. So that's one way that seems to work okay with me.
That's a good way of thinking about it, actually. And then I think the last point that I highlighted, I've got many other points which I haven't highlighted, but equally as important, I think was around just as a coach, watch as many sessions you can. And go out there, put yourself out there, right? Even if you're in a grassroots club, go and watch some other coaches in your grassroots club.
You'll pick something up, won't you?
You pick something up, even if you think, well,
I don't want to do
that. You'll pick something up, and he was making the point about stealing ideas, making your own, tailor them to your session. Just again, I think these are the things we've spoken about before, but he was just spot on the way he was saying it. Just absolutely spot on. So.
Oh, good job there. You took some thorough notes there. Well done.
I did, yeah.
Passed your test.
I did, yes. I felt a bit bad not being there, so I thought I better contribute somehow.
Well, I'm glad that you got a lot out of it, because obviously it's like almost having a listener and giving direct feedback. Because my slight worry was the fact I saw a wonderful session and I didn't know I'd done it justice with sitting with Paul to get it out, in audio, if you like. And it sounds like you've got a lot out of it by listening to it, so that's great.
Just to be clear, I'm talking about Paul here.
Of course, I think we know
right?
that, yeah. As long as it's worked and we've got something out of it.
Yeah.
What about back into grassroots? I mean, let's be realistic. They have these players 3 times a week. Yeah. Good players, Paul's got 20 years of experience. He's got a TV in the changing rooms. He's got all that stuff.
Yes.
What do you think? What would you take out of this? I mean, I'm happy to answer questions as well. What would you take out of that thing? Do you know what, with my kids on Saturday session, I might have a go at doing some of this stuff. We haven't got long left because we're going to push this too far, the episode, but just maybe in a couple of minutes or two.
People are going to get bored listening.
Yeah. But I wanted to make it practical. Do you know? And I want to think, okay, what would you do? And I mean, other listeners might have different ideas, and hopefully they'll share them with us if they have.
Yeah.
But what would you take out of things? I might do that on my session. I mean, one example would have been, I think, as silly as it sounds, I love the split in the teams using some kind of challenge, because I think that's got power to it, and it's fun, and it gets the kids thinking. But was there other things you think I could do that with my players?
I think the two things that I would take out of it, one was around the multi-sports, trying to embed that into my training sessions, not every week, and trying to link them to what we're doing, like with the netball, in terms of helping help the players understand the concept of finding space, but doing something different, which kind of tests their kind of ABCs a little bit.
And surprises them, right? They don't know what to get on a session. It's going to be not like
it's great, right?
Your sessions the same every single week. Not the same practices, but the same structural ways. It can be a bit of a fun. Add something new to it.
Definitely. And I think the other thing is around always making the session competitive, always having that edge about it. I think that's how you get the best out of the players. It helps them develop the most, and how you probably see the best of them when you go and play matches as well, because they've trained with that level of intensity in that kind of a competitive environment. You obviously don't want to push them too far, and we are obviously what's defined as non-competitive, but you just need that little bit of competitive edge, don't you?
Yeah, I challenge back on. I think it's a sport; it can't be non-competitive. So I think it has to be. And if you want to get your players prepared for competitive games, even if they're not about the results, there's no sport that's not competitive. So the more you do that in your games, the more they get used to winning and losing. The more they get used to it doesn't matter so much now. The more they get used to kind of playing at that intensity. Yeah, I think they're two really good points to actually take away from that.
And the final point is, I think I do this already, and I think you do it really well, is in terms of the arrival activity. I think if you're a grassroots coach, and you haven't got like a free play type arrival activity or something that's unstructured where the players own it, I think that is the first thing you should do in your next training session. First 15-20 minutes, just let them run, let them do what they want to do. Even if you set up pitches for them to play on and choose the teams, let them do it. I think you'll see the benefits through the whole session, in terms of how much they're enjoying it. It would take the edge off them a little bit when you want to kind of show them, demonstrate something, or you want them to think about something in a kind of constrained, small-sided game. I think that's just for me, that is something that if you're not doing it, you must do it.
It amazes me that people don't do it, honestly, Mark. I know we harp on about it quite a lot on the podcast, but it's more the exception than the rule, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just don't get it. It's easy to set up and go, and the players love it. It has I just wonder that coaches just think it doesn't, it's not coaching, we're not training in, the players, and they're not learning anything.
Yeah.
They get so much out of that.
They do,
and it actually adds value to the rest session when you actually want to do your coaching bit, because they're ready to listen and learn, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think you can observe them as well, right? You can
get so much
observe
watching.
And you can see what's going on and who's
or chat
up for
to the parents, or chat to the coaches. It's not a waste of time. It really isn't. And given that 10, 15 minutes to blow off the steam and stuff, it just means when they come to you anyway, if you've not even watched, they're kind of ready to do the learning bit now.
Yeah, definitely.
Which works as well.
Yeah.
Super stuff. I think for me, just walking away from the session, having seen it, it was the holistic approach to what Paul did from the start to the end. And obviously that builds into a bigger curriculum that they've got going on there. Really knowing what the theme was for the session, being able to visualize it by using the obviously you have the TV there with the Barcelona and Madrid game on, but there's other ways you can be creative. You have the flip chart there with points and stuff. but you could see the players. It was like being at school, but they loved every minute of it. They loved it, the kids, and that's quite powerful. And right from the start to the end, the theme was there. Everything kind of built around it. It all made sense. The players were just challenged physically and technically, but they were being challenged cognitively as well.
Yeah,
understanding, and that's got to have a whole deeper level of learning to it.
Yeah,
and you can, and these were articulate, nice kids. So if I'm honest with you, I was expecting relatively physically competitive boys that were probably mostly September, October, November kids that were rough and ready in football terms, and they I'll be honest, they weren't there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but these were articulate, nice boys, not just the handshakes, but genuinely polite. They could answer the questions that Paul's put out there. They were thinking about things. They'd obviously, and that doesn't happen overnight. So that whole ownership package that comes part of what they're doing there at Arsenal, you can just see it paying off, which means then you get the most out of the sessions, right? Because the boys apply themselves harder in the sessions. They listen. They don't waste their time. The behaviour is not an issue either. Obviously, the planning helps with that kind of stuff. But for me, it was the kind of having that whole package, I think, and seeing it there is almost like that's what you aspire to want to try and achieve.
Definitely.
With less resources and less time with the players that we've got, but there's loads of things you can pinch out of that and still put into practice in our environments.
And that's it. As grassroots coaches, right? You cut your cloth accordingly a little bit, right? You haven't got all these kind of TV and dressing rooms, or you haven't even got dressing rooms and things like that. But there's things you can do to be a little bit kind of clever, and even if it's sending clips of matches to the parents to show to the players, and I've done that before. Have a look at this under 15 Barcelona game. I remember it was like fantastic football, so I sent it to the parents. Or if people are videoing your games, you can then take a look back at them, make some notes, and send it to the parents as feedback. And can you just walk through your son or daughter and show them this kind of thing?
I think, Mark,
so you do be a little bit inventive, right?
Definitely. Like even if you're doing a finishing practice, like we take that, and you got a clip of someone scoring a great goal from maybe he's got his back to the defender and he's shifted his body one way to work the shot, turn and get the shot away. If you just spent during the free play session, walk around and just show each of your players that, have a look at that, and that's what you can do in the session kind of, and they've just seen it. Haven't mentioned it, just show them the little clip, 10-15 second clip. What do you think of that? What did he do? Oh, really good. We'll talk about that later. Just remember it. And you can be clever, can't you? And just use the stuff these days, and it just adds that bit to your session that just makes it more engaging for the players, and then hopefully more effective in what you get out of it in the end.
And what they get out of it.
For sure. All right, well, it's been a long one, so we're going to have to cut it there. Is that okay?
I think
all right.
so,
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that. Be nice to know what people thought. I'm sure Paul would welcome the feedback as well, so please let us know your thoughts on that. And if there's anything there you think you're going to use in your sessions, please share with us. We've got a couple of great more guests coming up, actually. We've got a futsal episode coming up shortly, which will be great. And some more things. Plus, we'll do maybe a catch up with me and you about stuff that's going on between us and the sessions that we're doing. Sound all right?
Good, yeah.
All right. Thanks,
Brilliant.
Mark. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Scott. Bye.